Thank you for that, Jackie, and I hope that's cleared up what is quite a complex issue for our viewers. We've also had a lot of questions going into a completely different area on Facebook. So the first one of those is, can a post on Facebook be a cause for disciplinary action for a member of staff? And what if this post is private between friends?
Okay, I'll come in there because, well, this is a question of employment law, really, with regards to disciplinary action. And in employment law, there's an implied term in employment contracts that a member of staff will have respect for the employer and also for fellow employees. When it comes round to breach of contract, so if they breach that duty of respect, then that can give rise to action on the part of the institution. And if it's serious enough, that can be sacking, indeed. Less than that, it certainly can be disciplinary action. Turning the question around, what happens if an institution tries to take action against a member of staff that is out with the employment contract? Well, in that case, the institution is doing something it shouldn't. It only has jurisdiction, if you like, over the member of staff insofar as their employment contract permits. So if we're talking about something out with the duty of respect that the member of staff owes to the institution and to fellow employees, then the college shouldn't really be interfering with that. So if the post is between friends and nothing to do with the institution, nothing to do with the respect for the institution and other members of staff, then it's not the college's business. So, for example, if someone is writing a blog which is specifically, for example, having a go at the management of an institution, then they're going to have to be very careful with regards to their duty of respect to that institution. However, if they have a Jason Miles Campbell's daily life blog and they're merely commenting about the peripheral aspects, about how they enjoyed their day at work or not, then that's unlikely to be a breach of the duty of respect that's owed.
The other, I suppose, approach, or I think we've just discussed this before, was that maybe that relationship between the student or the staff and the student is a tricky one. I mean, should a college just ban all social networking interaction between staff and students? Is it appropriate that staff are engaging in this type of activity or chatting with staff? I mean, with students, and then that, I think that a blanket ban on that is probably very harsh. But at the same time, you can see why people would go for that. Preventing staff interacting. But surely now we've come to a stage where these are learning tools, and there's going to have to be some choices made and decisions made about how the college uses this type of, if you like, chat rooms or Facebook or things like that. So I think it goes back to the point that Jackie made about training, that if you're going to, it should be made clear to staff what the college considers appropriate activity with students or engaging with students, and where the limits, good examples of where the limits are. And that, as I said, would be part of the training that should be promoted, both for staff and students, probably, I would say.
And I'll add, as a precursor to that training, then the college has to decide when it is appropriate. And so the policy decisions have to be in there, I think, early on, so that the tutors have confidence in knowing that they can do a particular thing, what they can say, in what context these social networking tools can be used, or indeed to know the limits and when they can't.
Well then, on to another question regarding Facebook and social networking. This one to do with actual information management more so, is asking, how long do we have to keep emails for, and does this apply to Web 2.0 platforms and social networking?
Okay, well, I'm happy to have a go at that to start with. Right. The answer to that is, how long do you have to keep emails for, first of all, is, well, there is no obligation to keep emails in general terms. There may be obligations to keep certain communications because of the content of those communications. For example, if I send a communication, an email about a financial matter, then it tends to be 7 years due to the tax regimes and the financial reporting regimes. With regards to, again, contractual liability, there's a period. And hopefully there's a member of staff at your institution that's dealing with overall data retention issues. It doesn't matter whether it's on paper or an email or indeed stored in some other form. If you have to keep the record for a purpose, then it's the purpose that applies and determines the period of time. When it comes down to Web 2.0 platforms and social networking platforms, there's the question as to whether you've got the communication, the message at all to keep. So retention comes in there. It's not a question of retention because you don't have it, someone else has got it. You may want to keep a copy of certain things for records. For example, if a Web2 tool is used to deliver an invoice to you, then for financial reasons you would want to keep that invoice, and so you want to organise having a copy of that. But you're retaining it for that financial purpose, not for any general reason. I think there's a confusion that sometimes arises. We have an area of law and a duty of data retention, it's called, and this actually applies to retaining communications data primarily for the purpose of anti-terrorism and anti-crime purposes. That applies to service providers, public communications networks providers. They have to keep records of who's been phoning who effectively, who's been sending email to whom for the purposes of investigation. That does not apply to institutions themselves unless they happen to be running a public communications network. Again, we've got a whole paper on data retention just to clarify the limits available at justlegal.ac.uk.
I think Janet does, I suppose, there's a voluntary code that Janet users will be able to say who was using what computer at what time, and they have a suggested retention period for that type of information of 3 months, as far as I remember, and that's also on the Janet website, ja.net website.
Okay, I think we'll have to bring that to a close there. Thanks to the team, Kirsty, Jason and John, for trying to answer those tricky questions.